Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast, brought to you from Poddymoor Heath. John, we've got our Poddymoor Heath sign in the background. We've done a little bit of prep in the studio, but not too much. I've actually decorated this room more than I have my own house since moving house last week, which has been a disaster in many ways. So it's nice to talk about Aston Villa.
We've had no podcast.
So I've not been able to do it for a couple of days. John, how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, doing fine, thanks, Dan. Really important week.
Yeah, massive.
Or it has been anyway. 8 days between Luton and Tottenham. But perfect start with 3 points. Hopefully 3 points out of 6 plus a win over Ajax. That'll give us a nice boost going into what would be the international break then after West Ham the following weekend. So this is a really important period of the season, and we've done fantastically well to get 9 points out of 9 in the last 3. I think we all said we'd take like 7, but we all also thought, well, we go into every game wanting to win it. But it's a completely different thing doing it. And as I said in my little mini podcast, like every team right now is scrapping for points, especially the teams.
Mini being half an hour.
Yeah. But every team is scrapping for points. Every team is scrapping for points now, and especially the ones at the bottom. And we've just played Forest, Luton. And I don't think we have, again, I mentioned it in my podcast, but I don't think we have many other teams now who are at the bottom of the league, which is a good thing. We are going to be playing some difficult games against the likes of Wolves, Brighton, but we'll see where they are, I suppose.
They might be kind of like mid-table fodder by then, aren't they?
Yeah, and there'll be reasons for why they want to beat us, obviously. But we'll have more to play than them, I think, by the time we come to play them. Yeah,
it's strange, isn't it, how time just changes our perception of things, that after the Man United defeat and they closed the gap to 5 points and it feels like the end of the world. Yeah. Since then they've lost to Fulham and Man City. Man City was expected, wasn't it, despite them going ahead, which probably scared you like it did me as well. And Villa have won every game since then as well and opened that gap up to 11 again, despite basically handing United 6 points over the festive period and the game before. So to have that gap back up to 11, to have that goal difference to be is ours plus 20 something and
plus 24
into the minuses now
plus
again.
24 plus goal scored, so plus 25 pretty much.
Yeah, so you're talking a 12-point swing before Man United overtake us. You've done the maths a few times on Twitter that I've seen, and we've mentioned on the podcast that if Villa win 5 of their last 11, they get to 70 points. Man United would need to match that by winning 4 more, winning 9 from 11, which, come on.
Yeah,
they're not doing that,
I think, to be honest, even if you look at 5 wins out of 11 for Villa, that is definitely achievable.
Yeah. They're still got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's still a task, by the way, in the Premier League at this point in the season. But I think you could probably look at 4 wins and probably finish above United, because that means they'd have to win 8.
United aren't winning 9 games out of 11.
No,
I know all this about like jinxing it and it's Man United and they're
not winning 9.
Don't write them off until it's too late and all that kind of stuff. But they're not winning 9 games out of 11. They could win 6.
I think if they do well, they could win about 7, and that would be a decent return for United.
I think they'd have to do very well to win 7.
Yeah, but they could if they played to their best, because they haven't been great this season, but they've still got a group of players who can feasibly win 7 games. Their fixtures aren't too bad, but Villa can still finish above them, of course, even if they win 7 games, and I fully expect them to. But then you're kind of working in the realm of, well, 5th place, is that going to get Champions League? And yes, it's likely, but again, there's still work to be done there. Who knows? Porto could knock out Arsenal in the Champions League. We might not do as well as we had hoped against Ajax. All these things can happen. Football changes very quickly, and nothing is given in football. So I think we just got to do a job against Tottenham. Just got to take every game as it, as I said before, 13 cup finals. Well, we've got 2 down, or 3 since the Fulham game. That was 14, I think. So, it's every game is still massively important. But what we can do now is kind of look at, as you say, those 5 games and think, well, okay, so we can win the 5 games at home before we even play Liverpool, before we even go to Brighton. We could be in a situation where we know that 5th place is going to get Champions League, because it'll be so far into that competition of the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, and we might already have a 7-point buffer or 6-point buffer on United. So that's the kind of situation I'd like to find ourselves in come the end of the season. Like, we've done enough already, which is like a dream situation. Who would have thought that? Villa have already got Champions League with a few games to go, and we can concentrate on like a semi-final in the Conference League. That's a dream scenario. But I feel like we can give ourselves that if we push on now against Tottenham, against West Ham. City away is going to be difficult, but we've got games there where we can give ourselves the opportunity to have a have that or keep the safety net that we've got. Basically, we want to keep that because we know City away, Arsenal away is going to be tough. Liverpool at home, that could be 9 points dropped. It could be. So we need to continue to perform well because we have got some difficult games.
I'm just going to rearrange this a little bit because I'm sitting in a very awkward position to be reading this laptop. So we've rearranged, got rid of some props. The laptop is in full view. I wanted to start the show. Oh, we obviously started, but start the show in terms of the running order here that I've got with the questions, with the popular segment. Here's something I saw this week and wanted to talk about at the start of the show, John. Right?
Okay. Yep.
This was from BBC Match of the Day's Twitter. It was a quote from Alan Shearer, which I've been without internet for 4 days now. So I've not seen Match of the Day. So I don't know.
We won, by the way, against Luton.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was the score? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've only seen the highlights. I've not seen the full game, I will confess. I was hoping to get internet even after Saturday and watch the full game back on Sky, but yeah, Virgin Media, damn you. So, Alan Shearer says about Ollie Watkins, he's on the plane, his bags are packed, he's got his boarding pass. Now, I think this is such a bizarre...
I hope he's not on a plane.
such a bizarre kind of...
Should be training.
...thing to talk about at the moment, that it's almost like... I've seen this a couple of places and I've only picked Alan Shearer here. Obviously, going the bags are packed and the boarding pass is that extra kind of like, it's more than on the plane. He's like definitely confirmed for the Euros, which is kind of, obviously. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it's almost like it's only taken till now for somebody to go like, yeah, he's definitely going to the Euros. It's like, well, you could have told him he was going to the Euros in September.
Yeah.
Why is it only taken till now for him to start going, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be at the Euros?
I don't know.
It's madness, don't you think?
No, it is, yeah. I just think, well, we know as Villa fans, we don't seem to get the kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say coverage, but it is the case of top 6, and if you go on Sky Bet now, it's the big 7, and it's plus Newcastle.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't like... we are bringing it up, but it doesn't bother me because we've said before,
it's weird.
It doesn't matter what people say about Aston Villa or our players. If Ollie Watkins was playing for, I hate saying big 6, the clubs who have the biggest revenue, then this wouldn't. They would have taken the conversation further, as we have. I wrote something earlier saying that forget what Guardiola said about Foden being the player of the season. It's Ollie Watkins, and I'm not saying that as just because I'm a Villa fan and I want to promote it. It's true. Like, surely he's the player of the season.
He'd be in that conversation if he played for Spurs or Arsenal.
I think he would. People would just commonly know him as the player of the season so far if he was wearing an Arsenal shirt, something like that. And who have you got? Rodri, Van Dijk, Foden. To be fair, Rice as possible candidates, but Watkins is absolutely there. Have they had a better season than Watkins? No, they haven't.
And so also you've got this kind of element of what I always talk about with crowning manager of the year, going to Guardiola for winning the title. It's like, well, you're expected to do that. For the players that you mentioned, like a De Bruyne or a Haaland or whoever, Saka, you think, well, they're expected to be up in the top 4 fighting for the title. Villa, yes, we all thought they'd do well this season, but for the expectations of where we were and who Ollie Watkins is based off a 14-goal season and a 12-goal season or whatever, for him to be doing what he's doing should elevate him higher in that player of the year conversation because he's kind of overachieving the expectation.
Exactly. And I think if a Newcastle player was doing this, as I say, because they seem to be like the media darlings and stuff, this probably sounds like we're complaining that we don't get enough attention and stuff, which is partially that, right? But true. I'm trying to explain why we're, as you say, we're us Villa fans, and I'd like to think us as people who work in the media, we're kind of over here of like Watkins is second best striker in the Premier League, one of the best in Europe, probably so far player of the season, but then the other people, the other pundits are like, oh yeah, you should probably play for England in the Euros. It's like, you're so far behind. And maybe in a few months they might get to the point where they think Watkins is one of the best strikers in the Premier League.
The next thing will be is, well, he needs to play for a big club next.
That's on the spectrum we're getting towards that.
I'll tell you, here's one that I saw on Twitter this morning on the way in on the train. If Ollie Watkins was putting up Harry Kane's goal and assist record as Ollie Watkins for Bayern Munich, and Harry Kane was doing it for Spurs in the Premier League, but the same numbers. Kane was doing Watkins and vice versa. Would Southgate be starting Watkins for England?
No, of course not.
From the Bundesliga?
No. Of course not. And to be fair,
Kane's obviously a great player. Like, I'm not saying
Kane is going to start the Euros, and I'm happy with that. Kane's a phenomenal player.
It's just like this playing catch-up element that Watkins is like. nowhere near.
Yeah,
it.
no,
It's like,
I know.
Yeah, he should be going now. We know he should be.
As I say, they're kind of just backward of where they're thinking. It's the same for Louise, same for John McGinn. He never gets enough credit for the player that he is. Same as Ezri Konsa, for God's sake. Like, we have one of the best ball-playing centre-backs in the Premier League, which I don't think many people are aware of, apart from Villa fans in Pau Torres. Sorry, if not in Europe. One of the best defenders, full stop. One of the most composed defenders in Ezri Konsa. One of the most underrated players in John McGinn. Louise, one of the best midfielders in the league. Like, we could go on and on.
Best goalkeepers.
Yeah, best goalkeepers on the planet. Leon Bailey has been one of the informed players, most exciting players in the Premier League. You know, and elsewhere in the team as well. We've had some fantastic performers. So, yeah, I mean, I think I said before, we're fourth. We aren't far away from Arsenal. They'll win tonight, but I think we're
3 or 4 points.
3 or 4, 5 points. Yeah, something like that. It's, you know, not a million miles away. So we're going to have good players in the team, but I think people just kind of overlook it a little bit because it's Villa, and they probably think, oh yeah, but they're a good team unit and stuff. And it's like, that is true, but we've also got some excellent players who could basically fit in most, if not all, teams in the Premier League. Maybe apart from, you know, would Watkins start over Haaland? No, probably not. But every other team, he would. Yeah. Same as Louise, you know, probably not in the City team, but every other team probably. So, yeah, it is staggering to see, when people talk about our players and, you know, Watkins, would you take him for 50 million, Arsenal fans? You're joking. Like, where'd you start with that?
You don't. You don't even give that
is it,
I won't talk about the Saturday social thing. You brought it up, didn't you, in your podcast, that kind of ranking the top 10 players in the Premier League, and Watkins wasn't even in the top 10.
Yeah, I shouldn't have given it airtime. Because
now I've done it as well.
Football media these days is...
in the gutter, John.
Well, no, I wasn't going to say. I was going to say a lot of it's fantastic. Seriously, a lot of it, you know, the stuff that fan media is boomed and it's brilliant. There's a lot of Villa stuff that is in our space. It's excellent. You know, like James Elcott, for example. James Elcott, he did fantastic stuff on his channel, like really in-depth stuff and analysis. But then the other side of it is, you know, kind of getting... would you say influencers maybe? You probably don't have a perspective on... Yeah. Listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Exactly that. Like, I could not go on there and talk about Arsenal or something. I'd look like a clown. Yeah. But I'm happy to say that.
I look like a clown on this.
I've always said I will never lecture or tell anyone how to think about their club or how they should support them, how they should... You know, like West Ham fans always have a go at David Moyes and stuff. And I think that's wrong and they shouldn't put out banners. I think it's disrespectful. But I'm not going to tell them, like, you're a disgrace, you this, that. Because it's their club. Yeah. You don't know how they feel. Yeah. It's the same for...
We've been in that situation before with other managers,
Yeah, and maybe, you know, again, my opinion is it's, you know, disrespectful and harsh, but there's a reason why they're doing it. They're not just doing it and to wind you up. Yeah. There's always a reason. So, but yeah, going on to that top 10 thing, that was just incorrect badly. Yeah.
Let's go on to some viewer questions now then. This is going to take us all over the place. We will touch on Luton throughout, but John, you did a solo podcast yesterday, 25, 30 minutes or so. So if you want conversation purely about Luton, it is just John on his own, but he did very, very well. You can go back and listen to that on Spotify or it's on YouTube as well. So into questions. We'll start with Sam, who says... what's going on with conceding from set pieces? We're incredibly creative from our set pieces going forward, but can't seem to defend them. Is that something to ask Unai?
Yeah, like for sure. And Unai is a big part of Villa's work on set pieces, like obviously. But I think Austin McPhee had more of a free rein, I suppose, when he was working under Steven Gerrard and Dean Smith for a little while. But Unai is very much more involved. He mentions that himself in press conferences and says that, you know, gives Austin the kind of autonomy to, you know, coach different things and spend a lot of time during the week on set plays. But Unai will also have a say in, you know, what drills are devised and, you know, in game as well. We always see Austin and Emery usually talking on the touchline, whether Villa are attacking or defending set pieces too. But it is a concern about the amount of goals we are shipping from set pieces. What I would say is that Luton are experts at it, and I absolutely expected us to concede one. Conceding two was obviously frustrating, but I said again in the podcast that I blame more our game management about how we concede those goals, because we know that if you give Luton so many set plays, free kicks, even throw-ins, corners, you are going to concede chances and they will probably score. And I briefly spoke to Ian Taylor after the game, and he said that when you look at Villa's team, you know, you can try and defend all you like, but ultimately, apart from Konsa and apart from maybe Watkins, there really isn't much there that is going to prevent a Carlton Morris.
In terms of physical presence.
Yeah, genuinely, apart from those two players, have we got many others who are above 6 foot?
No, I don't think so.
So that is a concern.
Right, let's move on to something more positive than conceding goals from set pieces. Let's talk about Musa Diaby. Sweet Sonic says, I've been wondering a lot lately about how good Diaby can become. I think his potential is frightening. Could he end up being the best of this crop of revitalised superstars? Good assist at the weekend.
Excellent assist.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like the ball was in the air for like 20 seconds. That wasn't obviously the case. It was the perfect cross for Luca Dean.
Imagine if it was in the air for 20 seconds. What would that look like?
We just pack the box, get Martinez up. But
Emery up there.
You know, it felt like, okay, well, this is the moment. Weirdly, because we were. This is going to sound strange, but I feel like we needed to concede an equaliser to then win the game.
Saying this yesterday.
Did I say it in the game?
Yeah.
I feel like everything I said is enough said in it.
Yeah, but I kind of understand your point that you kind of feel like we were sent.
The way the game was, I know you didn't, but in any game, because Villa were like, we concede now, Villa, if you're going to have to do it, because it's don't want to do it in the 85th minute.
Yeah, it'll kind of spark you back into life and open the game up.
Yeah, exactly. We needed the game to be more open. We needed Luton to come back 20 yards and just think, okay, well, we got a point, you know, and that allowed us.
Isn't how things work like that? It sounds bizarre the way you say it, but you can understand it.
Yeah, I think people call it, or tacticians or whatever, call it like game state. I think it's like a situation of, what is the game like right now? It's, well, Luton are on top. They need to get the goal, but almost felt like Villa did, just to kick themselves up the backside. So, Musa Diaby, though, excellent player. Brilliant first 10, 11 games of the season. Emery isn't concerned about him kind of dipping in and out of form, or dipping in form, I suppose. And I think Leon Bailey playing well has helped him in a weird way. He probably doesn't feel like it, and he doesn't want to be on the bench, Musa Diaby, not playing as often as what he would have hoped for when he joined the club. But considering he's got a period of adaptation now to do, which I think he'll be okay by next season. He'll be contributing a lot next term. There's a lot of games this season for him to continue to contribute and have a big part to play in the season, as he already has. But yeah, I think Bailey playing well allows him just to sit back and think, well, actually, I want to be playing, but I can get my confidence by coming in and out of the team, getting an assist, and that will help him. For example, if he plays against Ajax, I expect him to be on form and doing well, and then all of a sudden, if he does well against Ajax, you're thinking, well, we got Bailey, Diaby, these guys. Ramsey might be injured, but we have these top players on form and ready to hit Tottenham, and that's the way that it has to be. Throughout the whole season, we've been done by injuries. This is a different case where Diaby hasn't been playing too often because he was, lacking confidence. His adaptation isn't going so well. That's harsh. He's just in a period of adaptation. But, it's a chance for someone else to come in. Maybe this is the chance for Rodgers to come in with Ramsey injured, or whatever it may be. So I'm happy for Diaby to get that moment for him, because he needed that. He hasn't had that for a period of time now.
Yeah. Next, I want to do 3 questions from John, which is something I'd never do. Nobody normally gets more than 1.
It's not me.
Sometimes you get 2. Never 3 before, but they're all about the same kind of thing and they're all interesting. So I want to give a little, a minute or so to each one. Yeah. We're short on time. So he says, is it easier when a Villa game is on TV because interviews and match footage is readily available? So all of his questions are more about like doing the job that you do. Okay. I think this is kind of like an interesting insight.
Okay.
So is it any easier when Villa are on TV, or does it not make a difference to you?
No, not really, because the Premier League, I presume that's like British TV, because the Premier League's broadcast across almost every country in the world, almost. So you have like Premier League productions and overseas channels and stuff that, if players speak to the media, they speak to not just Sky Sports or BT, they speak to the BBC, a lot of the channels and stations, etc., the radio guys and women get their stuff as well. So and obviously we get to speak to Emery after the game and the manager. So no, it's doesn't make like a huge difference on the job really. As like a selfish point of view, I'd prefer if the games weren't on TV, because then we'd have more eyes on our stuff, just from like a work point of view.
Yeah. That's true.
If people can't watch the game, then they'd probably be more inclined to look at what happened. For example, if you Well,
if I had
Did you
internet
go on?
with no TV, then
Yeah.
I would be following your stuff. Yeah.
Cheers.
But I didn't
Yeah.
have internet, so I couldn't do either.
Yeah, so it doesn't make like a huge difference at all, really.
I think to flip that, because obviously I don't go to the away games and I go to the home games, so if we're at home and it's on TV, it makes no difference because I'm there anyway.
Yeah.
For the away games, when it's on TV, it's much easier to watch it than it is to find it through other means that I can't really talk about. So that Luton, for example, if I was doing the podcast, would have been much easier because I've seen it on the big screen rather than on a laptop or whatever.
Of course, yeah,
so
it's different
from that
from
perspective.
different
Yes,
from our
for you,
jobs,
you're
yeah.
there anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Second question: do you ever go easy on Unai because of the workload and pressure?
Workload and pressure on me or him.
Yeah, for you. I did wonder whether that was for you or for him. I don't know. Like if you've had a bad day, would you think, I'm not going to go too hard on Emery because I've got loads of other things to think about?
No,
or is it on him that he's on a bad run of results?
I think you've got to. It's difficult because Unai. Yes, you can criticise Unai, but you have to take it with balance. Balance in any situation. But if we lost 6 games in a row, I think then you could start to, question more. I think it's difficult if we lose a game because there's so much
good faith.
There's such a big sample size of, well, actually, this is just an anomaly.
Yeah.
If Aston Villa lose a match, it doesn't happen very often. So you can't dig out, lots of different things and blame something, because more often than not, it's just a case of, well, okay, maybe tactically they got that bit wrong, or there was this mistake that won't happen next week. Kind of full stop. It's I will always be balanced with that, but it's just it's different. For example, when Steven Gerrard was in charge, I'm sure Ash found himself criticising a lot him and the players, and to an extent that was justified because, not to an extent, more often than not it is justified because they weren't doing well, and the players, whether it was Gerrard's fault or they didn't perform themselves, they are clearly at a better level than what they were. But now they're all playing very well. Unai's a top manager. He knows more than me tactically, so I'm not going to tell him what tactics he should be deploying, but I'll question, why did you do this, to get an answer, like why was this, because I don't know. Or can you explain this, what was your thinking behind that? That's how you get better insight, I think, anyway, rather than just saying, they did this wrong, and that's there's a reason why. There's a reason why certain tactics are used, why certain players come on. Unai knows what he's doing, but it's our job to ask questions when it didn't work and when it does work about why that is the case. It's not a case of us just kind of berating them and saying, this isn't good enough because we've lost 1 game in 6 or something. Like, again, that's an anomaly, and Villa are playing so well. It's hard to criticise. You can criticise when it needs to happen, but I think there's a big difference between criticism and kind of objective thinking, if that makes sense. I think you need to be balanced in how you do it, especially with Villa at the moment. Yeah,
definitely. And the third and final question: do you ever think that asking if a player is available from injury will inform the opponents too much?
No, I don't think so. I understand that, but I think
someone else will ask it anyway if you didn't.
Well, there is that, but I mean, I get it, and I think there's been maybe 1 occasion when a player didn't play the next day or something and Emery didn't mention it, but that might just be because he forgot or something, I don't know. But I think it's just like as a general it's not a rule, but if you're asked directly, if you're a manager and they ask you who is injured or whatever, or is this player available, they're either going to say something like, he's late fitness test, or he could play, he's going to be in the squad, but we don't know if he's going to start, as he said with Conser and Torres. So he's not giving everything away there, but he wouldn't lie and say no, they're not ready.
But is this just what when we've talked before about like scouting and things, that the opposition will have prepared various different things for? Well, if Pau Torres is back for Villa, we have to do this.
It will help the opposition knowing for a fact that Torres is starting or Conser is starting.
Yeah, of course.
But for example, just as because it's the recent one, Emery wouldn't mention which one would be starting. That's kind of for them to guess. And it is obviously later in the week as well. Press conferences are always the day before, 2 days before. So for example, Luton would have had only a day or something after the City game to prepare for Villa anyway. So it's not going to make like a massive impact. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't doubt some managers want to kind of keep that kind of more close to themselves, but I think it's a general thing of, well, you know, if Emery or whoever would basically be lying to the media every week saying this player is still injured and then they play, it's difficult to then kind of take anything that they say seriously.
Yeah.
As I say, that isn't the case with Emery. It's not the case with any manager really. You just don't lie in your press conferences. That's the key point.
That's the golden rule.
Even if it might help you in the game, but only by a little bit anyway, I think.
Yeah. I wonder whether, and this, I can open this out to people listening or watching. So we might think of these as boring questions about our job and the things we do and the processes. But if people are interested in that, I'd be more than happy to do like a Q&A about the workflow. I don't know. I think how many times do we get asked what is an embargo? And to us, that's just this is the thing. This is just what we do.
Yeah.
But you know, if there's enough questions for that and people want it like a little, I don't mean like an hour, just like a 15, 20 minute chat.
We were thinking of doing like. But it would be impossible to film, like kind of like a day in the life of covering a game or something. I don't know.
I don't think we'd physically be able to do that, but the theory of this is where John goes, this is what he does, this are the tasks, then we do the podcast, and this is how we do this and that.
I've been a season ticket holder at Villa for many years before doing this job, and my not obviously my routine, but how I watch games and how I approach games is obviously much different working, but also in how I experience it. In terms of, sounds stupid, but like when I turn up to games, when I leave the game, what I do after a match, do I celebrate a win? Yes. But you know, it is I don't know, I'm not going to tell people how to think about it. I think it's interesting, but if
people care as well. But if people don't care, that's fine. But if people do care and think that would be interesting, I'm happy. But
how we do that, I have no idea. Because for a start, you can't even film in press conferences. So
no, I think we just have to talk about these are the things that we do, and I hope that doesn't come across as like self-important and self-indulgent.
No.
Let's talk about us, but just maybe it's insight to.
Don't mean to come across that way
to various parts of the job, like things like the embargo process and the things we've just spoke about there about giving things away in press conferences is something that we probably take for granted.
In my head, my week starts on a Friday. It sounds dumb, but like that's how I think about it. Because obviously we don't.
I don't feel like that.
No, but I don't usually have like the days off on the weekend, so I have a day off like in the week.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, well, Friday's the kind of the start of the game, if that makes sense, because it's press conference.
Yeah, and then like Formula One, how like the qualifying comes before the
similar,
game.
It's similar to that. It's like Friday is the start of the week for me. It isn't, you know what I mean, though. And then it's the game, then it's like the reaction, then it's like a day off or whatever, and then it's the build up for the
Well, let's move on, because we're saying let's maybe do a whole podcast of that, but then this is what this is. Oakley Dokley says, if Jacob Ramsey is out, that's a blow, isn't it? Him going off injured on Saturday. What does our left side look like for next week? Could Dean and Moreno both play?
Possibly. It's not something Emery's done up to now.
Yeah, in theory they can, but I don't.
I think you could maybe look at like a triangle with either Luca Dean or Alex Moreno on the left, and then because Torres should be back at least for, he's back on the bench now, isn't he? I don't know if he'll play against Ajax, probably said for Tottenham, but he pushes up so high, not onto the left necessarily, but he dominates that area. You could probably play a triangle of like Torres, Tielemans in front, and on the left back. Then you kind of keep your balance on the right still and don't affect what Bailey's doing with Watkins, etc. That's one option. The other option would just be a straight swap with Morgan Rogers. Maybe Diaby comes in, plays on the right. Bailey bumps up one and then Tielemans pushes on the left. So yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, but it is a blow to lose Ramsey because he was getting back into form. He looked the player that we kind of had last season. He's back up to that speed, I thought. And he was looking good. Yeah,
shame. Hopefully nothing too long term. Another injury to the list.
We'll get an update on Wednesday in Amsterdam from Unai, but he did leave. But he did leave the stadium in a protective boot. But that happens almost all the time with these sorts of injuries. So I think Anthony Gordon had one, had a protective boot on, and then he was fit a few days later. So I don't know. It would be speculation to suggest anything about that. But he left the stadium in a boot. If anyone wants to know,
if Twitter is to go by, it's an ACL. Every injury is an ACL, isn't it, these days?
Rumours.
Ezri Konsa's ACL back within a couple of weeks. Fair play to him. Right, the Bristol Villain says, is Unai Emery already a top 3 manager in the club's history? That requires a little bit of thinking for me.
Well, he's got the highest win percentage.
Yeah. Of all managers ever?
Yeah.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
60-something %, I believe. Oh, well, at least it was a few weeks ago.
I feel like this is probably more one for Kendrick than us.
Yeah, he is. No,
Ron Saunders.
I mean, I've only known, or we've only
known really good managers.
I'm trying to name the managers
Smith.
then, but there's been so many because they'll get sacked. Well,
O'Neill and Smith are the only two good ones in our proper lifetime.
And Smith, I don't know, he did a great job for Villa, sort of thing, but he's not a top.
Yeah, he's not top coach.
No, he never got Villa into the top half, and that's because he sometimes, context needed. He was, just got promoted and stuff. But Unai, I think he's top 3. If he wins a trophy this season as well, we'll be saying it for sure.
Yeah. I don't doubt that he's right up there. I was just
3.
trying to think of the others, like Big Ron would be up there for a
It's
lot of people.
difficult because football changed so much.
Yeah.
The tactics these days. And I know you're not discrediting anything.
Big Ron would work now.
Well, yeah, and it's not to discredit anything, though, is it? Like, we don't mean it in that way. It's just
no.
Football right now is so different to what it was before, and a lot of people prefer it. How it was before, to be fair.
Yeah, but if you've got to rank who are the best Villa managers in history, is it George Ramsey? I think was it the first manager? I think there's some doubt of whether it was the actual manager or something. Won loads of trophies in terms of history and what he brought to the club. You probably have him up there. Ron Saunders, Big Ron, Brian Little, and Gregory were good.
I put Emery in my top 3.
Emery, O'Neill, even O'Neill got
Emery's
top 6
better than O'Neill.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to think of like a top.
Yeah.
However many.
Yeah.
But yeah, Emery's got to be right up there. A quick one, because I think we've spoken about this a lot as well. Brogan says, what's the situation with John Duran? There's a lot of previous issues about wanting to go elsewhere, injury problems, etc. Is that all kind of settled down now? Is he happy with Villa, etc.?
Well, I don't
think there was any doubt that he was
unhappy.
I don't
know John Duran personally, but I haven't heard anything that he's disgruntled. I think the situation with him previously was just he wants more game time. He wants to feature more. He's eager to do everything at once. I think that's the he's
a little bit bull in a china shop, isn't he?
He's got a lot of learning to do. I'd put it that way.
Yeah. More diplomatic.
But he's got a lot of learning to do because he's with Emery, if that makes sense. Like, he has the opportunity to do a lot of learning. I think that's the kind of point I'm trying to make as well. So I think he just needs to kind of, realise what an amazing opportunity he has at the age that he is. He's 20 still. So, hopefully he'll be back for Tottenham on the bench. That's the kind of the earliest he'll be back, I believe. I don't think he'll be there for the Ajax game. I just think when he comes on, he makes it different. I know a lot of people don't seem to warm to him and stuff. I think he's a good player.
If you could pick one to bring off the bench
here we go.
To make an impact going forward, would you rather have John Duran or Zaniolo?
Duran. Yep.
Is that anti-Zaniolo or pro-Duran?
They're both.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think of Zaniolo? It's not a viewer question. What do you make of him? So I remember when he first joined, the phrase we kept saying is he's got something about him. Floppy hair, pink boots.
We haven't seen it, unfortunately.
No.
I like
the idea of Zaniolo.
I like his qualities and his attributes, right? And he's clearly a good player, but there's a big difference between a good player on the training pitch and a player who can play in the Premier League and perform. And we haven't seen that so far. He's won us 1 point against Sheffield United. That sounds really. I didn't mean it like that. I meant he's had a contribution, a single point contribution. But
if that's the point that gets us into the top four,
well, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, everyone plays their part, but there's not enough there to go off. That he's, I don't know. Maybe he has a really good ending to the season or whatever. But it's been a bit. I would say disappointing, actually, because I thought he would be. He had an opportunity as well at the start of the season. He started a lot of games.
He was a bit of a maverick, wasn't he? A bit of a wild card, and we've not really seen.
And I feel like that worked for him.
Yeah.
I remember the game against Brighton. I really liked what he was doing in the first half, and that was like the start of his career at Villa, I suppose, or season at Villa. So I've been a bit disappointed by it.
Back to the viewer questions then from JJ, not Jacob Ramsey. Well, it might be. How might Jack Grealish of 2020-2021 have fitted into this side and system? And what about the current version? I'm living in the past, I'm aware.
2020 to 21 Grealish would probably be sold again. No,
150 million this time?
He'd obviously play on that space where Ramsey's playing,
that,
left attacking space, and he'd be very good.
Where would we be in the league if Grealish was playing for us?
Which Well, I say
Prime
which one? They're the
Grealish.
same player.
No, they're not.
Where would he be in the league? Same player, different instructions, I think.
Yeah. Oh,
What
yeah,
I
'cause
would
he's not lost his ability.
Yeah.
Correct.
But what I would say is that Grealish that we had 20 to 21 wouldn't have as much joy, I don't think, in this team right now as what he had under Dean Smith. I still think he'd be exceptional and he'd be very good, of course. He's a fantastic player. But what he had to his game in terms of getting into the final third, the progressive carries, all that stuff. Right now, he would be receiving the ball pretty much on the edge of the box most games, I think.
Do you think it's because he wouldn't be the main man as well? That it was just
Not
like
really.
it was almost like the instruction was give it to Jack. Let him do his thing. That wouldn't be the case now.
No, but I don't think that was like ever a massive, like, you know, if Grealish wasn't the main man in the Villa team right now, and I think he probably would be pretty much the main man. But I get your point. Like, we wouldn't just be serving him the ball. But I don't think that would be, you know, I don't think that was like how do I put it? I don't think that would be an issue if he wasn't given the ball at every opportunity. It'd still influence games. If anything, it might even help him because he'd have less of the ball, but then also less attention off the opposition. So yeah, it's all hypothetical. But yeah, you know, I don't think he would be lost in this team whatsoever. I know a lot of people kind of say, "Oh, well, you know, different system. He has to do different things under Emery." The guy's one of the best players I've ever seen live. It's not even a exaggeration.
We've got quite a few questions left, but some are silly, some are about FFP. Would you rather go silly?
Have we had any silly questions yet?
Or FFP? No, we haven't. Should we do all the silly ones in one go?
All right, yeah, go for it. You're only here for the silly questions.
Well, yeah, we've got nothing else to contribute. On Monday night, Joe says, it's Aston Villa legends at the Alex Theatre, Merson, Saunders, Townsend and Dublin. What a podcast that'd be, by the way, getting all them together. I think my dad's going to this, by the way. I might get him to tap him up and say, do you want to come on the podcast?
Record the audio.
Joe says, if you could meet a former legend for a pint, who would you pick? I've got an answer. I don't think it'd be a great conversation, but
go on.
Have you seen the picture of Melberg and Larson in their like Hawaiian shirts from the mid 2000s?
Yeah,
that version, that era. Yeah, I don't know what the conversation would be like between them two and me. Probably not great. But just for an excuse to put that picture on screen for what I'm referencing to, those are what I'd like to go out with for a pint.
I'll join you. My Villa legends are few and far between. Ashley Young probably doesn't drink because he's on a diet of ice cubes. Probably be Jack, to be fair. I mean,
oh yeah.
But that opens the question: is he a Villa legend? I think would be. Go on.
I was going to say anything. No, I don't know.
For me, he is, because a legend, in my definition, is the impact that they've had at the club.
Promotion and then survival.
So he dragged us to promotion. He then dragged us to stay in the league. I don't think we'd be where we are now without him.
No, we wouldn't be. What is that, a legend? I don't know. Dr. AVFC says, what is John's bench press and how does it compare to his squat?
It's all going on.
There we go.
I feel embarrassed.
Carry on.
I do neither, actually.
No, you don't. This is
neither.
Dharma all over again.
I can give you texts right now from my partner who will clown me for not doing squats ever. As you can probably see. No, I don't. I don't bench press. And
what are you doing for those guns then? Hidden away under that jumper?
Well, if you bench press, it's got nothing to do with your biceps.
You can say that. I don't know anything about going to the gym. Come on.
Yeah, I do neither. So it's really.
What is this then? Like bicep curls or something?
That's a bicep curl. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you do for?
I don't bench press. I should bench press.
What you're saying there, John, is that you look good.
Yeah, cheers, Dr. AVSC. I've been to the doctor for a while, so that'll do.
Okay. Villa Chat says, will there ever be a time where a boy will be born who can swim faster than a shark?
So we've had that question at least 3 times.
We have had that one before, yeah.
No is my answer.
I think yes. You never know these days, do you?
But would it be a boy? Do you know what I mean?
That's a great point. How fast does a shark swim, do you think? 30 mile an hour or something?
I have no idea.
If you had to guess.
Probably.
I reckon. Oh, we've got to Google that, haven't we?
40.
See who's closest.
40 miles an hour.
I reckon. I said 30, but I feel like it'll be more than that. Sharkswimspeed.com. They can swim.
Welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast.
60 mile an hour.
Is that like top speed?
That's top speed, yeah. That's the fastest a shark
I
has
reckon
ever
our
swam.
average is like 40. Who's checked that?
In the Guinness World Records.
Who's checked that?
It's 60 mile an
What
hour.
a load of rubbish.
That was Jaws probably in the film. One final silly question before we go back to the football. When you have pancakes, do you have them thick or thin?
Well,
And the answer can be both.
I got a pancake maker for my my birthday. I haven't used it yet.
What does that entail? Is that not like a waffle machine?
It's just basically like a portable stove sort of thing.
Okay.
So
It heats itself.
well, no, you gotta like plug it in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You don't need to put it on like a cooker or anything.
No, it'd be pointless. You just need a pan.
That's what I was thinking. You got a pan for Christmas.
It's difficult. I when I have them thicker, I tend to burn them.
And they don't cook all the way through properly, do they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely
You need
thinner.
lower heat
I
for
feel like
that.
that's my issue. It's
Lower
probably,
heat for longer.
Probably me problem, but
That'll help you out.
yeah, but then you've got to wait,
Yeah, I know.
and I don't like waiting for my food. So yeah, thin.
What do you have on your pancakes?
Pretty boring, just lemon and sugar.
Nah, that's the best answer.
But recently I've been having no sugar, so just lemon.
Okay, fair enough.
Kind of realise you don't need it to enjoy it.
Back to football then, John. The last part of the show is about FFP, basically PSR, everyone's favourite subject, I'm sure. I think we probably need to do a bigger podcast about this when the accounts are released,
Well,
which is supposed to be
we're going to
around now. Yeah, that will happen. We'll dissect those with a financial expert. For those that listen to Matt Kendrick's Villa voice notes, it's Dave Powell, who's like at Reach PLC's money guy, and he's very good at dissecting the numbers, so we'll get him on the show when those figures are released and talk about things properly, because all we can do at the moment is speculate, and there's a lot of speculation online about, do we need to sell a big name? What happens if we don't get into the Champions League? Do we need to sell Douglas Luiz for 100 million? Is there a release clause in so-and-so's contract? Like, there's a lot going on at the moment, and we can't sit here and categorically say yes and no to those things, and it would be pointless to do that. So, to flip that, first of all, from Dan, who says, there is a lot of talk about us having to make a big money sale in the summer, but if you had to choose one player in the current squad to spend their entire career at Villa,
better.
who would it be?
One player to spend their entire career at Villa.
See, I saw you what you did there. You thought I was going to say which player you're going to sell.
Who are you going to have to sell?
We've done that before.
That's more of just
Who's your favourite player, basically?
Yeah,
isn't
it's difficult. I can't imagine a world without quite a few of them, actually.
Yeah,
but
same.
John McGinn and Emi Martinez, and Edric Konsa and Paul Torres and
Ollie Watkins.
It's difficult. Yeah, it's really difficult. I would say, oh my god, I don't know.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really difficult because, we're getting to that point now, like similar to where we were in the promotion season, where you think, how does it? I don't want to see any of these players leave. We could definitely improve the team back then, and we can improve it now, but it'll be difficult with PSR. I don't know.
I would say Martinez, I think, but purely not because of like he's my favourite player or whatever, but for like
we don't know what we have until we got him, until we lose him.
Short-term future. Like, he's 31. He plays he's 38, and he has another 7 years at Villa. For the short term of 7 years, you've got a reliable goalkeeper, and that is the foundation for everything. So you could pick Jacob Ramsey and go, well, there's a 12-year period there with him or whatever. Yeah. But I think Martinez is...
That's why I went to Martinez as well.
Smart answer.
And I think, I said just then, we don't know what we have until we've lost him. We do know what we have, but the difference, I think, could be quite huge if in... I don't know, X amount of years he was to leave. I don't know.
Ollie Watkins as well, 28.
There's arguments for all of them.
Like if he stays for another 5 years, scoring goals at the top level, well, more than that, 5 or 6 years, and gets 150 Premier League goals for Villa.
Yeah. Honestly, all of them are like second place, I think, to Martinez for me.
Yeah.
That's
not
Martinez is my one. I just think he brings so much as well in terms of leadership. He's a brilliant ambassador as well in a way for Villa, I think.
I don't think we tap into that enough.
No, we don't. He is huge in Argentina as well. he's the guy that won Messi the World Cup.
We should be going to pre-season.
In 100 years' time, people will be saying about Emi Martinez. Well, they'll be talking about Messi, and then but then the next conversation with the old guy at the pub, he'll be saying, "Oh yeah, but it was Emi Martinez who won him the World Cup," and he'll be like, "Yeah, that was Villa's goalkeeper, the guy who made Emi Martinez, gave him the opportunity to become the player he is." So yeah, I'll say Martinez.
Okay. Just said we're not going to speculate, but let's speculate. From Paul, he says, "Do we have any confirmation that we need to sell a big name? And if we do, given you've seen Rodgers perform a similar role, do you believe the most likely could be Ramsey?"
Okay,
it's pure profit.
Yeah. Well, firstly, Villa haven't released their figures yet. We don't know exactly when that was going to be. When it is going to be. Sorry, I was told it was going to be before now, but it hasn't happened.
Maybe it'll be today as this podcast goes out.
Yeah, and there's nothing in that, by the way. It's just, I don't know, probably just
fax machine's broke or something.
The guy who has to press publish was off work or something. I don't know.
Internet maybe.
Probably
wasn't me, by the
way. Yeah. And I would also add that UEFA's figures that they put out saying that Villa have the worst losses in Europe, etc. I was told that those figures didn't match up with Villa's. Again, we're expecting a big loss, but whether it's 2 million, difference, where it's more or less, I presume it's less than what UEFA said because Villa have, kind of questioned it. So, yeah, I don't know how big the loss is, but it's not as big as UEFA's, I'm told. Whether Villa have to sell a player or not, again, we don't know that for certain. The people who run Villa's books will. What I would say is that we'll be interested in our players this summer, whether we have to sell them or not. And if that interest comes to a bid, i.e. big money for Louise, big money for Konsa, big money for Ramsey, whoever it may be, those three players are pretty much all pure profit now. So, Villa, I don't think are in a position to just say no to any bid for their players. I mean, there were certain players who they know they can't lose. I don't think Watkins will be going anywhere. For example, he's just signed a new deal. Why would we entertain any offers for him unless it's record offers sort of thing? But those are the players: Louise, Konsa, and Ramsey potentially, as the question says. Those players are pure profit, and I wouldn't be surprised if bids are made for them, or I wouldn't be shocked if they were. And yeah, Villa would have to play their own game, but understand that they're not in a position to just bat away offers. They still will want to secure a huge fee for whatever player leaves this summer, because there's so many good assets in that team. But that's just a situation that they find themselves in.
Just very quickly to clarify, we've spoken about this before, but people who maybe this is their first episode of Claret and Blue, which would be mad. You say there that Konsa and Louise would be pure profit. People think pure
Pretty
profit
much
is an academy product because they've come through for free, but because Douglas Louise and Konsa have been here for so long, and basically their contracts have been paid off, for want of a better phrase, from their initial transfer fee, you would almost be making pure profit on somebody that you basically paid so little for 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, so we don't really need to go into it. But
sales of those players look or are better on your books, basically,
than a Diaby sale would be, for example.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It would, So it would be more favourable. And again, I'm literally picked up 3 players. We don't know if Villa have to sell. That will become more apparent when the accounts are published and everything after the season, should we say? But what we do know is it's obviously not a pretty situation in terms of Villa's outlook. They're not going to be able to spend £100 million and not sell anyone in the summer. It's not going to happen. What I would say is that if they do have to sell players, or if they did sell someone like a Louise, they're going to have to replace them as well. They can't sell a player and leave a gaping hole in the team. And I understand the question there of like Rodgers, well, have we basically replaced Ramsey already if he has to go? I think that would go some way to explaining it, but when Newcastle, etc., were linked with Ramsey, it was like almost on deadline day. It was ahead of the summer window. Villa were insisting that Ramsey isn't going to be sold. Again, things in football change, and as I say, money talks. Bids will be tabled for our players, I don't doubt, in the summer, and we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, we don't know, and we're not kind of putting players in the shop window suggesting that they have to be sold or they will be sold. It's not the situation. Just kind of trying to kind of explain how the land lies, I suppose, for Villa, because we all know that the finance, we've spent a lot of money, and that because of the rules that, in my opinion, protect the big six clubs, then Villa will have to box clever.
I think we'll call it a day there, John. There was a couple more questions that we haven't got round to, but they should save till next week's episode, because we're running short on time here at Poddymoor Heath. Thank you for joining me, as always. Got the sign in the background there. Hopefully people enjoy the visual element of us being in the same room as well. It's nice to chat Villa with you. If you've enjoyed this episode, then get involved in the YouTube comments section. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then you can leave us a review. Obviously a positive one would be very much appreciated. We'll be back later in the week with some build up to Ajax. I think we'll do like a little Ajax preview from home when I'm sorted at some point.
I'll be in Amsterdam.
You'll be in Amsterdam, of course.
Yeah, cafe or something.
Yeah.
Some nice
some
background.
Some kind of cafe.
You're jealous.
Yeah. And a post-match show for Ajax as well will be out later in the week on Thursday evening. Again, all being well with my internet situation. If I'm not sorted by then, I will be furious. Virgin Media, if you're watching this. Thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. We'll see you again very soon.